necessarily have to leave guys, but that's like telling an NFL or NBA free agency, hey, you're a free agent with no issues. You can go somewhere, but let's not test the free agent waters. Don't go out there and get offers right now. I don't blame the kids. And college football after this weekend is going to look completely different with between the expansion of the conferences, the 12-team playoff. This is the end of college football 2.0 as we know it coming up this weekend.
And Peter, I think some of the very best quarterbacks in the country right this second are transfers themselves. Yesterday on this show, we talked about the Heisman Trophy. I look at the numbers and it says to me that Jaden Daniels is the clear and obvious front runner for the award. Vegas sees it differently. They have Bo Nix as the Heisman Trophy winner. As someone who has seen every snap that Jaden Daniels has played at LSU, what do you think?
I mean, there's no doubt to me. And how about that craziness? A former Pac-12 transfer from Arizona State leads the SEC, and then now a former Auburn SEC quarterback leads the Pac-12. It's Bo Nix. So it's talking about your transfer quarterback situations. But, I mean, there's no doubt. When you look at the numbers and what he means to his own team, Jaden Daniels is clearly the clear-cut favorite. I mean, that's the guy. Now, the reason why, and you guys appreciate the odds aspect of it, is that you still have Bo Nix. You still have half of the country that votes on that side of west of the Mississippi that are going to say, you know what, what a great story for the Pac-12 to be in it. Bo Nix has been fantastic, and he's got one more opportunity on a championship weekend, mind you, against the 96th ranked total defense in college football. So I think he gets the last laugh, and here's how I look at it. It's basically Jaden Daniels is in at like 12 under in the U.S. Open, but Bo Nix is 12 under as well, or 11 under, but he's sitting on the tee of a reachable par 5. And he's going to have an opportunity to go yard on the last one.
But, Peter, let me push back just real quick because I agree with you. He has the chance to make the sort of finishing argument or closing statement this weekend, but I don't think they're close. Like, what we're doing is penalizing Jaden Daniels for playing across a wretched defense that cost them 3 wins. Like, am I seeing this wrong? I mean, I know you're just sort of giving the other side from that half of the country, but from where I sit, if we're going to say the Heisman Trophy goes to the most outstanding player in college football, there's no question who the most outstanding player in college football is right this second, is there?
No, there's not. It's clearly Jaden Daniels. You look at what he does rushing the ball. You look at even the strength of schedule that LSU has had versus what Oregon has had this year. It's not even close. Now, I do push back just a certain extent because, honestly, Jaden Daniels' defense being so bad and so wretched, guys, almost had like a Caleb Williams effect at USC last year, where like USC's defense was so atrocious that you're like, well, we got to leave him out here because if we don't, we're going to go give up another touchdown. So those have helped the numbers. But when you look at how he's played this year, there is zero doubt. But again, who should win and what the odds makers think is going to happen is all from two different things. And I'm hopefully we see some chaos and all the odds makers are wrong this weekend.
It is Greeny here on ESPN Radio, presented by Progressive Insurance, along with Hembo, Evan Cohen, in for Greeny. Normally you hear me on Sportsmanlike, 6 to 10 a.m. Eastern Time, here on ESPN Radio with Chris Canty and Michelle Smallman. We're joined by Peter Burns, Best Week Ever, SEC Network, Sunday morning, 7 to 10 a.m. Eastern Time with Courtney Cronin, of course, here on ESPN Radio. Peter, what's more likely after Sunday at noon Eastern? Is it that we will have 2 SEC teams out of the college football playoff or Ohio State in?
Ohio State's out. Ohio State's a placeholder in my mind at this point. I mean, we've seen this through the committee going, all right, well, we don't want to drop them too far. But then, all right, when it comes down to it, and I've been doing the mock selection committee once before, and I've seen it, and you have these situations where you're like, yeah, you should probably have a team there. You believe it, but they don't have a chance to be in the Final Four. That's Ohio State. I mean, unless you're talking about Iowa end up winning and Oregon winning and, Oklahoma State and Louisville. I mean, unless you just absolutely have chaos, that's not going to happen. I will tell you this, though, guys. It's crazy to think, but this could be a year that the SEC gets 0 teams in. And it's not out of the realm of possibility. I think there's a lot of people that look at Louisville, FSU, and go, hey, if you're a Power 5 ACC champion, even with Tate Rodemaker, their backup quarterback, that they deserve to be in. And then the committee has already said that they value Texas in that win against Alabama even more so, and rightfully so, because they won by double digits in Tuscaloosa. I mean, I don't know how you guys feel, but a college football playoff, if Alabama barely beats Georgia and none of those 2 teams are in, going to feel a whole hell of a lot different than it ever has before.
Yeah, I have to control myself. I'm like ready to go crazy because like you're right on what you're saying, and I think it's absolutely ridiculous. Like if you gave me a choice right now blindly, I could have 4 SEC teams in all 4 spots or 0, I would take 4. It is just ridiculous, Peter. The fact that we may have this play out this way, that if Georgia loses to Alabama, Michigan wins, right, Washington State wins, Washington wins, Florida State wins, and then Texas wins, and you would go head-to-head, Texas over Alabama, and leave an SEC team out. It is utterly ridiculous. And I'm not going to discourage people from watching or listening here on ESPN Radio, but it is absolutely ridiculous to think that you could have 0 SEC teams in. And you know what? I've thought about this. I've thought about this scenario a bunch, and here's the way I come up with what they're going to do. If what I just said plays itself out, I have a weird feeling, despite the loss, they would actually take Georgia. It would be the only way to keep an SEC team in and then make sure that they have the other 3 in. Because if they take Alabama, Texas is going to be mad, right? Because, hey, we beat Alabama head-to-head. If you take if you take Texas over Georgia, we're going to sit there and say, really, you're going to have 0 SEC teams? So I actually think, as crazy as it sounds, it wouldn't shock me if Georgia loses and gets in.
You think about this, and here's the deal. If it gets to that point, right, and you're sitting there going, all right, what do I look at? A 12-1 Georgia squad, right? A 12-1 Georgia squad who could crush Ole Miss, crush Tennessee, crush Missouri. You're saying, all right, are we going to let them in? Or if, Florida State beats Louisville 17-13 and looks okay, what is deserving or what's the best? You can't tell me that's not one of the 4 best teams. And how are you going to say that's not Alabama as well, too, for the way that they've played since week 2? Things have changed since week 2. Guys, Deion Sanders was on the top of the world in college football in week 2, right? Things can change throughout the course of the season.
Last thing here with Peter Burns, of course, SEC Network, best week ever here on ESPN Radio, Sunday morning, 7 a.m.